Okay, so the recording has begun. Um, thank you, dear devotees. That was wonderful to be able to recite this such a beautiful chapter, very important chapter of Bhagavad Gita, right in the middle, ninth chapter. So today we will be discussing the ninth verse. So I will now share my screen with all of you, so you can see it on the screen, and you can recite this verse behind the muted mics. I just want to make sure that there is no background noises. So I'm going to just mute everybody. Okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, ninth chapter. Nacha mamtani karmani nibhadanati dhananjaya udashinavat ashinam ashaktam teshu karmashu. Translation. O Dhananjaya, all this work cannot bind me. I am ever detached from all these material activities, seated as though neutral. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. One should not think in this connection that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has no engagement. In his spiritual world, he is always engaged. In the Brahma Samhita 5.6, it is stated, Atmaramasya tashyasti prakritya na samagamaha. He is always involved in his eternal blissful spiritual activities, but he has nothing to do with his material activities. Material activities being carried on by his different potencies. The Lord is always neutral in the material activities of the created world. This neutrality is mentioned here with the word udasina vat. Although he has control over every minute detail of material activities, he's sitting as if neutral. The example can be given of a high court judge sitting on his bench. By his order, so many things are happening. Someone is being hanged, someone is being put into jail, and someone is awarded a huge amount of wealth, but still he is neutral. He has nothing to do with all the gain and loss. Similarly, the Lord is always neutral, although he has his hand in every sphere of activity. In the Vedanta Sutra 2.1.34, it is stated, Vaishamya Nargrineye na, he is not situated in the dualities of the material world. He is transcendental to these dualities, nor is he attached to the creation and annihilation of this material world. The living entity takes their different forms in the various species of life according to their past deeds, and the Lord doesn't interfere with them. I would not like to seek the blessings of our acharyas, our spiritual masters. So by their blessings, I'll be able to reflect on this wonderful purport of Srila Prabhupada and share some points with you. Om Jnanaatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunantanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijanam Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Scha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubheva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I'll read the translation of this verse again. O Dhananjaya, all this work cannot bind me. I am ever detached from all these material activities, seated as though neutral. So just to begin with, so far we have what we are covering are the two sections of the first part of this beautiful chapter. And in the first to the third chapter, there is the knowledge, or what is the most confidential knowledge is being explained, and what is the eligibility criteria was explained. And from verse to the 10th, Krishna's Achintya Abheda Abheda relationship with this world, like how Krishna is within the world and also outside the world. That has been discussed so far. And also there is an element of that we will be discussing today in this particular verse. So here the theme of this particular verse is that the Lord is not directly responsible for all good and evil done in this world. What Lord is saying here is that all this work cannot bind me. I am ever detached from all these material activities. So basically, when we take birth in this material world and any activities we perform through our body, mind, words, or action, then those activities have equally, opposite reactions. Whether it is a very nice pious activity, if it is a pious activity, we will reap the fruitive results of those activities. And if it is a sinful activity, we will have to suffer the fruits of those activities as well. Whereas in the case of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, when he appears, he is completely aloof for these activities. Even if he doesn't appear, he's actually still aloof, sitting in the spiritual world. So here you see this beautiful small picture of Krishna. Just below Krishna, these are the three deities which are representing the three modes of material nature. And there are these ropes you're seeing which are coming all the way down to the material world, trying to control the living entities. And Krishna explains in this book, Bhagavad Gita, that there is always a supremacy between each of these modes. Sometimes the mode of goodness, which is called Sattva Gun, is more prominent, and sometimes the mode of passion is more prominent, and sometimes the mode of ignorance is more prominent. So Krishna is completely aloof. He's there in his spiritual world, performing the various inconceivable activities, some of which we heard, like I covered Brahma Vimohan Leela, and then Mukunda Hari Prabhu covered a pastime, Vrindavan Prabhu talked about a pastime. So all these wonderful pastimes of the Lord are going on, but at the same time, Lord is the ultimate sanction or the approval of those activities which are being done through the empowered Devi and Devtas, as we had discussed previously. So here in the purport, the word Udashina Vat implies that Lord is neutral. And Lord is always neutral in the material activities in the created world. And material activities is carried out by different potencies. And still he has control over every minute detail. So Srila Prabhupada gives a very beautiful analogy in this purport, that how there is a high court judge giving so many decisions, but he's completely aloof or neutral and unaffected with the gain and loss. So one person may come there for the sinful activities he's performed, and he's then given a punishment. But judge is least bothered about what suffering that person is going through, or what suffering, or somebody who's rejoicing that he's been saved from the punishment because he had not done anything. So similarly, you see, I was reading this and I was thinking of some examples. As I was not walking, I was driving to my work this morning. I noticed there were some children playing in the park, and you see the children are playing, and they were playing football, and they're having their exchanges, and they're trying to compete with each other. But I have nothing to do with what they're doing, because I just walked past and I just saw what was happening there. So that is just one example to see that so many activities in this world are going on. We may be aloof, but Lord Krishna, with all of us and so many other countless living entities are performing these activities. And Krishna is there ultimately in our heart as a super soul, sanctioning those activities, but he's ultimately aloof from them. The another example is given is that you see, in this world or in the earthly planet, there is sand, there is water, there is everything. So the sun rays are being distributed equally, whether they are falling in a very filthy place, say the animals are passing all sorts of, dirty things, stool and things like that on the grounds. And at the same time, the sunshine is also falling in a beautiful land of agriculture, where the wheat or the rice paddies are growing very, very nicely. So you see, sun is performing those activities very, very wonderfully, and he's also purifying the filthy places. But ultimately, sun doesn't get infected by what he's trying to do through the sun rays. The sun rays acts like an antiseptic on these places. That is why it is said those who want to have a healthy life, um, they should worship Surya Dev or sun god. So similarly, sun is doing all these activities, but he's completely aloof. He's doing that through his sun rays. So we are affected only in our sense. We are affected of loss and gain, because we are always, the reason we are affected, because we are attached to this material world or to those activities. So for example, let's say, I don't know, maybe there is somebody on the call. I think maybe Rajshri Mataji, since she recited this verse, I take her example. So this is just an example, Mataji, so don't feel bad. So now what happens is, if I go to Rajshri Mataji and said, oh, you have arrived at the temple, welcome to the temple, please take a seat. She's in the temple. And then she drove into a BMW, white color. And I go to Rajshri Mataji and say, Mataji, just to let you know, unfortunately, there has been a wind was blowing and a big pole fell on your BMW. And then Rajshri Mataji would be like, oh my God. Of course, I mean, she's in temple. She's a wonderful devotee. Maybe she won't be bewildered, but at least I will be. I'll be like, oh my God, I'll be completely shaken. My brand new BMW. And although I have an insurance, but for that moment, I'll be so disturbed. And then next moment, another person comes and says, oh, actually, I'm so sorry. I think yours was a white color, but it's the blue color BMW. And now immediately Rajshri Mataji will be happy, and the person who has the blue color BMW will start to feel that pain and start to go through that suffering. So you see how related these things are, that because we are attached, if it was somebody else's car, I'll be like, oh, Radha Gokulan, thank you so much, you saved me, and I'll carry on with my activities. So, but that's what the world of duality is called, you see. But Lord is least bothered of what's happening to us. Of course, for a devotee, it's a different situation, and we will see how that is a different situation. So the reference of neutrality is given here in the Vedanta Sutra, that Veshamya Nirgrane Na. This reference implies that the Lord is transcendental to all material dualities. Based on the past deeds and desire, living entity takes on different forms, and Lord does not interfere with it. That's how the purport ends. But does it mean the Lord has no engagement? No, the Lord has an engagement. In fact, he is always engaged in the blissful pastimes in spiritual world. I mean, one story comes to my mind where Srila Prabhupada tells the story that once an English person, he visits India to try and in the search of absolute truth and to really establish who God is. So he begins to go to many temples across India. He visits the temple of Durga, and he sees Durga is with a trident, holding a trident, and then Lord Shiva is lying down, and she's like so fierce, and she's trying to do some activity, and he thinks, oh, that's it, this is God. And then he realizes, hang on a minute, no, she's, she seems very fearful. Let me go to another place. So then he goes to another Devi Devta temple, and he realizes that Devi Devta is also doing something, or he's sat on something or doing some activity. Finally, he goes to a Radha Krishna temple and sees the Lord is standing there in Tribhanga pose with a beautiful flute in his hand. And then he concludes that this is it, he's God. And then his reasoning, why do you conclude that he's God? He says, because everybody else seems to have got some work to do. He's the only guy who's standing in a dancing pose and trying to dance. He must be the God, because he's having the most fun among all the different deities I've seen. So like this, you know what, Lord is having the best time we can ever imagine. And we can also have that best time. as long as we are able to give up this material attachment and be attracted towards the pastimes of the Lord. Another short story I'll share with you. One time, this is a story from Sanatan Goswami. Sanatan Goswami had a servant who was serving him in a very small village at one time. And then it was a very dense, dark forest. And this servant said, "Oh, I've just heard from some people, there is some party going on in the forest." And Sanatan Goswami said, "Party in the forest? Where do you want to go in the night?" He said, "When is the party?" He said, "It's at midnight." So Sanatan Goswami, out of love and affection towards his, actually it was his disciple, not the servant who was serving him. He said, "Don't go in there." He said, "No, I really want to go. I want to see what's happening." So that shows our attachment, that we are so much attracted, even to the point of not caring for our service to our spiritual master. And we sometimes go here and there trying to enjoy the world. So Sanatan Goswami says, "Okay, if you really want to go, go, but don't eat anything, because in the party they may offer you all sorts of nice things." He said, "Fair enough, dear Sanatan Goswami, my dear Guru Maharaj, I won't do that." Now he goes over to that place, and then he realizes that, oh, wonderful party is going down, and they serve him a nice feast, rice, everything very, very nice. And he says, he remembers his spiritual master said, "Don't eat anything, just roll it in a cloth and bring it over." So he rolls everything over and comes back. And next morning, Sanatan Goswami says, "How was the party?" He said, "The party was great. And what did you eat?" He said, "No, I did not eat. I wrapped everything and I got it." He said, "Okay, bring that cloth." So he opens up and he sees there all kinds of mucus, blood, and very, very filthy things. So then the disciple is completely bewildered that, "Oh my God, this was a feast last night. And what happened here?" So Sanatan Goswami says, "Who were you partying with?" They said, "They were wonderful people." So Sanatan Goswami explains that they were not wonderful people, they were ghosts. Only ghosts will party in the midnight, and they don't eat feast or prasadam. They eat all sorts of filthy things actually. So the moral of the story is that unfortunately we get attracted thinking we will get happiness in this material world, and we find that when we go to try to enjoy that happiness, the next moment we are actually faced by misery, like how the disciple of Sanatan Goswami had experienced. So it's a great lesson. If we do want to increase our attachment, if we should increase it towards the spiritual activities, towards the chanting of the holy name, towards the taking association of the devotees. And this is a beautiful verse from the 5th chapter, 15th verse. I wanted to read the purport. In this verse, although Krishna is the supreme controller and the ultimate doer, he does not accept responsibility for what happens to us. The Supreme Lord does not assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. So the reason I also selected this purport, because it's very relevant to what Krishna is trying to give us the message in this particular verse, which we read from the 9th chapter, 9th verse. In the purport, Prabhupada writes to 5.15, the Sanskrit word Vibhu means the Supreme Lord who is full of unlimited knowledge, riches, strength, fame, beauty, and renunciation. He is always satisfied in himself. Undisturbed by sinful or pious activities, he does not create a particular situation for any living entity. But the living entity, bewildered by ignorance, desires to put into a creation, into certain conditions of life, and thereby his chain of action and reaction begins. A living entity is by superior nature full of knowledge. Nevertheless, he is prone to be influenced by the ignorance due to his limited power. The Lord is omnipotent, but the living entity is not. The Lord is Vibhu or omniscient, but the living entity is Anu or atomic. Because he is a living soul, he has the capacity to desire by his free will. Such desire is fulfilled only by omnipotent Lord. And so when the living entity is bewildered in his desires, the Lord allows him to fulfill those desires. But the Lord is never responsible for the actions and reactions of the particular situation which may be desired. So this is the essence of this verse, that the Lord is not at all entangled with what we are going through. we are reaping the fruits of what we have sown as seeds in form of our previous activities actually. And how is it different for the devotees? That's how we will conclude today's session. So we will be covering this particular verse. It's a very beautiful verse. I won't go in the detail of the verse of the purport, but I'll just share a story and we will conclude on that. And this verse is Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Ye Jana Pariyupasate Tesham Nityabhyuktanam Yogakshemam Vahami Aham. Translation: But those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. So this verse will come in this chapter and we will discuss that more in detail. However, I thought for a devotees, the Lord actually personally gets involved. That's the difference between anybody who's not performing devotional service or who's not attached to the Lord, and between the devotee who's actually so much attached to the Lord. And the story is that one time there was a wonderful devotee called Arjun Acharya and his wife. They were not very well-to-do. They were living in a very small hut. And Arjun Acharya used to go and beg alms, and that is how he was basically passing his days. And he decided that I'm only going to go to 3 houses, and whatever alms I will get, that is what I'm going to eat and give it to my wife, and we will both share it. And he was such a wonderful devotee that he was always absorbed in writing scriptures. And so he was writing a commentary on Bhagavad Gita. And one day what happened is, while he was so busy in writing the commentary, half of the day had passed and he forgot that he had to go to beg alms or food from the 3 homes. And it was already afternoon and he thought the ladies at the home will be sleeping and it's not a good time for me to go. And today we will have to do without food. So as he was doing it, he came upon this 9.22nd verse in Bhagavad Gita, and he read this last word, Yogakshemam Vahami Aham. He said, Vahami Aham, that can't be right. Krishna cannot come personally. He must be either sending somebody or something. And he crossed that word, Vahami Aham, with his pencil or pen to take out that from the commentary which he was writing. And then he stopped there and he said to my wife, I'm going to go and take bath in the river and I'll be right back. So she said, okay, fine. And he went. And then what happened? Soon as the husband, Arjun Acharya, left, both Krishna and Balram came in disguise as a beautiful boys. And when the wife of Arjun Acharya opened the door, they had rice, they had all sorts of fruits and wonderful offering to give it to his wife. And he said, this is your husband has sent it. She said, my husband has sent it? He had gone to take bath. She said, no, this is my husband has sent it. So she said, well, I'm very, very grateful. Thank you very much. And as they turned around, the wife of Arjun Acharya saw like a very, like rashes on the back of these 2 boys. And she said, oh my God, what happened to both of you? She said, your husband has beaten us up because when he tells us to do so much of work, and when we don't do it, he beats us. And the wife got so upset. She said, how can it be? My husband is such a meek and a humble devotee. He said, no, he's done it to us. Look at how bad he hit us. So the wife took a very little bit of sandalwood pulp she had and she rubbed it at the back of these 2 boys, and they happily left. And now Arjun Acharya comes back and the wife stops talking to him. And he says, why are you not talking to me? And the wife says, well, I don't want to talk to you because you're a very bad person. You're hitting the children around and creating all these kind of nuisance. What kind of devotee are you? Till date, I thought you were a wonderful devotee. Just by hearing this, something strikes to Arjun Acharya and he goes back to his that word. And then he immediately realizes that he made a mistake by crossing the word Vahami Aham. And the moral of this beautiful story is that for the devotees, the Lord personally gets involved. And we have seen many, many cases in our life, especially in life of Srila Prabhupada. Can you just for a moment, if I request you all to close your eyes, let's try this. Just for 10 seconds or 15, 20 seconds, if all of you could close your eyes and now start to imagine try to bring a picture of a 70-year-old man, how a 70-year-old man would look like in your mind when you're closing your eyes. And now imagine that 70-year-old man trying to take a 37 days voyage over Jaladuta from Vrindavan to Calcutta going in a ship, in a cargo ship to New York. And then getting down in New York, not knowing whether to turn left or in Butler, Pennsylvania, or to turn right. The only thing this old man had was two things. One, the conviction in the instructions of his spiritual master. And second, the only thing he had was the faith in the holy name. And with that, he offboarded the Jaladuta and began the Krishna consciousness movement with the hippies, trying to make them happy by giving them Krishna consciousness. And in 12 years' time, going around the world 15 times, writing 18 volumes of books, serving Lord and his devotees 22 hours out of 24 hours, only resting from 10 o'clock till 12 o'clock in the night, getting up and writing these beautiful literatures, opening 108 temples during at that time, initiating 10,000 disciples all over the world. Just for a moment, just imagine, it is such a difficult task to do it. But somebody who comes directly from the spiritual world, he has full faith that Lord is personally providing me. And so many times Prabhupada commented that I have not written these books. Krishna has personally dictated these books. So that is why, as an aspiring devotees, it is our duty to have faith in this process of Krishna consciousness and make some progress. Today, a very dear well-wisher and a friend of mine wrote something so beautiful to me. He said, I've been, thinking about chanting and somebody in my family has been encouraging me to do that. And it was such a nice thing that this inspiration is coming within the heart from this person, because somehow or other he's making a sincere attempt to come closer to Krishna. And Krishna seated in the heart is guiding him now. So we have to have a faith in this wonderful teachings of our founder Acharya, who's given us this wonderful parampara we have, and this beautiful Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam books we have. On top of that, we have the wonderful devotees who we can associate with. And just by doing a little bit of every day, we can make incremental progress in our spiritual life. And there is every hope and chance for us to go back to spiritual world, and Krishna will personally take care of it. All he needs is our sincerity. Just a little bit of greed or lolium, as Rupa Goswami calls it. So, dear devotees, that was the conclusion of our today's session. I hope there was something useful you found in this session. I would now like to stop the broadcast. If anybody is hesitant to ask the questions and would like to send it via chat, they can. And those who would like to ask over the Zoom, feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions or comments, or if you have a reflection you want to reflect on, feel free to do so.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Rajesh.
So the last verse which you spoke about, Lord coming down and carrying the burden for his devotees, very inspiring. But also, when I think about my situation,
yes,
I kind of feel that I'm not yet qualified. And yes, when you talk about Prabhupada and he got direct help from Krishna to do what he wanted to do, or what Krishna wanted to do. But is it true that in my life, where I am as a devotee?
Yes, Prabhu.
So how do I think about this verse from a personal?
Sure, Prabhu. So firstly, I would say, Prabhu, that Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that ye yatha mam prapadayante tam saiva bhajami aham. He says that according to the proportion of our surrender, Lord reciprocates. So what happens is, first of all, to actually understand and appreciate the point that Rajesh Prabhu, you are such a, all of us are such fortunate people to come to a process which is so bona fide. And the proof of the pudding is, Rajesh Prabhu, you are practicing Krishna consciousness in such wonderful mentors with such good devotees. That itself, if you look around yourself, you have such a good, environment to practice Krishna consciousness. That itself, I would say, would be a big reciprocation for the Lord, because Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, so many people are after this knowledge, but only a rare soul comes to the point of actually begin to understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is something called bhakti, and I can begin to practice that process. And you already have that favorable surrounding. That would be the first thing I would say, Rajesh Prabhu. The second thing I would say, Prabhu, is that as you continue to practice devotional service more and more, you will experience this in your life, Prabhu. So many of us, like for example, like, one of my service, which I feel very inspired towards, is to go and share Krishna consciousness with others. My spiritual master also is very happy when I do this service, and so is Srila Prabhupada. So when I knock on the doors of the people, and I have such amazing experiences where people are saying, oh, sometimes we have knocked on a door and the person is saying, oh, I've just finished reading this one book, and I was thinking, where do I get ISKCON books? I've had this experience. And now you're standing in front of my door. This is just unbelievable. So, I mean, I didn't think, puffed up myself, I'm there. The whole idea is Krishna is arranging. That soul was sincere. He read the book, he appreciated. And anyone who appreciates anything about devotional service, Krishna will arrange favorable environment or a favorable position for that person, Rajesh Prabhu. All we need is a little bit of faith, and slowly, step by step, we make a little bit of progress, and you will see all these wonderful miracles happening in your life as well, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. This is Ashwin here.
Hare Krishna, Ashwin, Prabhu.
Can you bring up the last but 3 slide up, please?
Okay, Prabhu, 1 second.
I actually wanted to ask this question long time back, but I was waiting for the right verse.
Did you say to bring the third? Let me know which one. Is it this one?
The one with free will, yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry. This one?
No, I think next one. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, yes, Prabhu, yes.
So over here, in the purport, the 8th line, it is said that the Lord is omniscient, right?
Yes, Prabhu.
That means he knows everything.
Yes, that's right, Prabhu.
Okay. And in the next line, he says that he has given us capacity to act by free will.
Yes, Prabhu.
So how does that work?
Okay. So, Prabhu, the way it works is, of course, the Lord knows everything, but what the free will we have is a very minute independence. The living entity is given when we come into this material world. The reason we are given that minute independence is, Prabhu, that when we want to enjoy away from the Lord says, okay, if that's your desire, then okay, take your birth in a different species of body, which is more apt for your sense enjoyment, and you carry on enjoyment. But that free will is there for us to decide whether we exercise that free will to realize our mistake and make our progress way back to Krishna, or we through the free will we decide, no, I want to carry on enjoying this material world. And what happens is, it's that free will allows us to discriminate, Prabhu. So when we come to in connection with the spiritual knowledge, it is an opportunity for us. And sometimes even while we are practicing, we get tempted with various things we want to do. So that much free will is allowed by the Lord for us to decide whether I should take to Krishna consciousness or I carry on rot in this material world. That's a very minute independence which has been given to the living entity, Ashwin Prabhu.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Just a reflection on what happened today.
Yes, Prabhuji.
I've been thinking about getting a Tulsi Mataji plant.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Because I don't have any in the house. And then suddenly there was a message that they have got a plant that if anybody can want it. So this increased my faith that yes, I wanted it and I've been given it and I'm going to collect it. So it made me feel suddenly so happy that somebody listened to my prayers, even though it was very small prayer.
Yes, Mataji. Actually, this is what happens when we have material desires, Mataji, that then things may take time or come when they have to come, because whatever happiness we are supposed to get, we will get by providence. And same is the case for suffering. But like how you said about your desire, it was a spiritual desire, because Tulsi plant is the most worshipable plant. And it is one plant which can bring us closer to Krishna very, very quickly, because Tulsi as a devotee is very dear to the Lord. So because that desire was there in your heart, Krishna fulfilled that desire, so you have that opportunity. Thank you so much for sharing that, Mataji. I have a couple of comments I would like to read here. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you for the class. With reference to this pandemic, is Krishna aloof in this crisis? If humankind has sown the bad seeds and is now suffering the results of our wrongdoings and our actions. So thank you for asking that question. Very nice question. Well, yes, it is a fact that mankind has actually not done justice to ourselves and also to the material nature. Because it is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam that in Kali Yuga, things will deteriorate quite badly. And one of the things we see is, one of the symptoms of a saintly person is compassion or Jivadaya. In this age, people are killing the animals in the slaughterhouse mercilessly. And when you have things like that going on, people, like Prabhupada calls it, one of the worst things, people, before, if somebody becomes pregnant, they're not married, they want to abort the child, it's a sin. Because you're trying to go against the nature to do something. So all these activities, unfortunately, do result in a collective karma, which the people have to suffer. I mean, these are just some things, Mataji. But as Vrindavan Chand Prabhu, I think, covered in one of his sessions, there are three kind of different miseries, Adi Daivik, Adi Bhautik, and Adhyatmik. So all these, there are feminine, there are all these different, disturbances due to somebody's else, other living entities, disturbances because of our own mind. So all of these collectively result on these things ultimately. So Krishna is completely aloof in one sense, absolutely. But those who are intelligent, they are taking the shelter of Krishna in this situation. Because in Srimad Bhagavatam, there is beautiful chapter called Prayers of Queen Kunti. And Queen Kunti is praying to Lord Krishna that, my Lord, let all the miseries come upon us, because whenever I'm in miseries, I'm thinking of you all the time. Although Queen Kunti is thinking of the Lord all the time. But she's trying to tell us that if not anything else, let's take shelter of Krishna in difficulty. So for somebody who's intelligent and he sees these things are happening and tries to make spiritual advancement, for them, these kind of things become an impetus to come closer to Krishna. So thank you so much for that. And the next comment here is, modern day miracle, nothing less. Through full, complete, absolute faith in Lord Krishna. Sorry, I just have to mute everybody to read this last comment. 1 second. Yeah, okay. If you could please mute yourself. Modern day miracle, nothing less. Through full, complete, absolute faith in Lord Krishna, the Mahamantra, who can do such a thing at such an elevated age, in an unknown land, all alone, very little money, and a case of transcripts. It is unbelievable, pure miracle. I believe it. Please accept my humble obeisances. So thank you so much for showing the appreciation for Srila Prabhupada. Yes, it is a miracle. And all of us somehow or other have become the recipient of that miracle through Srila Prabhupada. So dear devotees, any last comment or reflection before we conclude today's session?
Hare Krishna. Oh, sorry.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Palika Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Sorry, I interrupt with the other person. I just want to mention this also. The same thing happened. Another devotee, like Arjunacharya. I think it's Jayadev Goswami. He also had the same thing. Krishna came, and because he crossed it, and Krishna came, and he also did the same thing. He came also as a boy. And he says, that just reminded me the story of Jayadev Goswami also. And I also just want to mention that this kind of a miracle thing happening in this group. I mean, a few days ago before, I was thinking, so many people have joined. It would be nice if somebody also read this, English or Sanskrit. Then there'll be so much preaching going on. Those people will go out and preach. I'm also very much favor for the preaching. And just suddenly the next day, all the other, the participants, they started, reading the in English. And I said, my God, Krishna did listen to me,
Yeah.
Such a
Krishna,
wonderful realization.
yeah, Mataji. And Krishna listened through Hema Mataji and a couple of other devotees who messaged me that, Prabhu, it would be a good idea to keep both. I said, sure, why not? Actually, what happened is, I mean, I've been doing this on the instruction of my spiritual master from the last 1.5 years. My family, we come together, we've been doing chat. And then, we discussed, I was discussing with my wife and I said, let's just do it over the Zoom and then, other devotees can join in and we can get association. So that's how I just requested one devotee to do a little flyer. We sent it out. Then I requested Vrindavan Chand Prabhu that I'm not qualified. Please, you come and share it. And Mukunda Hari Prabhu, who are such wonderful devotees. Like this, we started this Palika Mataji. So thank you so much for sharing that realization.
Really wonderful experience. How Krishna arranged everything,
Yes,
It's
thank you.
so wonderful. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There was one more. Mataji was trying to say something.
Yes, Prabhuji, Mrs. Mehta here.
Yes, Mrs. Mehta.
Yeah, the Srila Prabhupada ji talks about a judge and the sort of giving a judgment, and then in similar situation, sometimes a doctor has to perform an abortion at the request of the parents or something wrong with the child. Does the doctor get any sort of blame for doing it, for performing it as a part of his duty?
No, Mataji, in the events when the doctor is trying to save the life of somebody, those are the decisions. I mean, the subtleties of karmas is very difficult to answer what exactly happens, Mataji. But when it is done out of the duty, of course, that is taken in consideration. So similarly, somebody has asked me here, what happens if unfortunately someone has been raped or had an abortion through no fault of her own? What sin does that person have? Unfortunately, of course, I mean, if it is an accidental thing, then there isn't. But obviously, for something like that to happen, that means there is a suffering one had to go through. And a devotee, it is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam 11th canto, there is a verse that for a devotee, he accepts everything which may not be so unfavorable as the mercy of the Lord and tries to take a lesson from it and try to make a progress in whatever that condition is. That should be our attitude, that what is the lesson in this whole situation? What is Krishna is trying to tell me here? So I can try and work on that lesson and make the best of this bad bargain actually. Because this whole material condition is a bad bargain. But somehow or other, we have to make the best of this bad bargain. That's the main thing.
Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I would like to now end here. We've just, it's 8:45. I would humbly request if anybody has any comments or any questions, they can share it on the WhatsApp group we have created. Feel free to share the reflections. It's nice to see what has stuck in your mind. Any particular words of Srila Prabhupada concept, any story. And I'd like to thank you all for giving me your association this evening. And we will be given the association tomorrow by Vrindavan Chand Prabhu tomorrow evening. So thank you very much, devotees. Please accept my humble obeisances. Pancha kalpa tarupesha kripa sindhu evacha patitanam pavnebhyo vaishnavibhyo. Thank you, Rajshri Mataji and Sri Dhamma.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Hare
giving me the
Krishna. Hare
opportunity.
Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for giving me the opportunity to say the English verses.
Not at all. You're wonderful, Rajshri Mataji.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.